Well, hello everybody. Pastor Randy here. Welcome to Making It Simple. We have reached Thursday and the week is moving right along. I hope that all of you are well on this beautiful new day. We've been having quite the talk this week on this subject. What is sin? As you can see, as with most lessons, I really don't try to get in a hurry. And it's not about trying to drag something out. But this is a big deal. It's a real struggle for a lot of people. Again, because we have redefined so many words throughout the course of humanity that really go away from the intent of what it is God is trying to get us to understand. We've redefined marriage. We've redefined love. We've all these different things. But in the context of all of those redefinings, so we have the word sin been included. And I've shared that in earlier parts of this lesson in that, it's become a lot more about opinion than it has the actual situation itself, which we addressed yesterday very clearly, missing the mark. What is the mark of God? It is holiness. For example, talking about, again, redefining opinion. Just this morning, as I'm sitting down to record this lesson, I'm reading an article, much like I referenced yesterday, I think. Very prominent name within ministry circles that everybody would know, but I'm not going to bring that up. But obviously they get to write things and produce things that get a lot more attention than, say, someone like myself. And I don't say that out of jealousy or anything else. It's just true. They just have that longevity. The article was about whether it was a sin to drink coffee. Yeah, you heard me. At church. In other words, every Sunday morning as we're gathering together and we're mulling around in the fellowship hall or we're standing in the lobby greeting each other and you have a cup of coffee, you may be going to hell. You see, friends, that helps nobody. Nobody. It doesn't create one thing that has anything to do with the salvation of your soul. Not one thing. Nothing. See, that does not cause you to miss the mark of God. That does not cause the judgment of God to come. No. We waste way too much time on nonsense that we, again, attempt to redefine and implement our opinion into. This is one of the greatest tactics of the enemy. And I'll tell you how I tie those things together. I shared this yesterday as we were closing. The lies of the enemy, the lies that began in the garden. Well, actually, it began earlier than that, within himself. See, 1 John would say that if you say within yourself there is no sin, you are a liar. Okay? So as Lucifer said within himself that I'm not wrong when I want to place myself above God, he was lying to himself and to every other one that would follow him, that would ultimately get them kicked out of heaven. He would bring that foolishness to earth, to God's greatest creation, humanity. Within his lies, he created two different issues: doubt and temptation. Doubt. As Eve is looking among the garden of where they have been placed, to where God has clearly said to her and to Adam, of all of the things in this you can partake, but leave that one alone, because you don't need that. It's not beneficial to you. It's not helpful to you. It will cause you a lot more harm than it will ever cause you gain. That was clear. And in fact, he made it a little stronger there. He said, and if you take of it, you will surely die. He was speaking in two completely different reasons there. Physically, of which they were not created to do, and spiritually, which was never the intent. Okay? So he's saying, leave that alone. That's fatherly advice. That's he's saying, that's not good for you. Leave that alone. But then the enemy comes along and takes one question and changes the entirety of humanity forever. Did God really say that? All it took was that moment of pause. All it took was that moment of doubt to open the door, which ultimately would lead to not just doubt, but to temptation. What do I mean by that? Well, I'm not sure. I mean, I think that's what he said. I mean, it'll probably be okay. Just this one time won't hurt. I've said this many times in sermons. Just one time is oftentimes all it takes. You know, when I was on the road as an officer, it only took one bullet to kill somebody. It only took that one pull of the trigger to change everyone's life involved. The person that's life was lost, their family, and the person who did it, because now their freedom is gone as they're in prison and whatever the case. But it doesn't just stop there, see, friends. It's not just, well, I'm not sure. Well, maybe, or just one time it moves over eventually. It begins to, we talk about evolution. There is an evolution. There is a continual change. And it's not from, a bird being a cat or some foolishness. It moves from simplistic doubt. Well, I'm not really sure, so I'll take my chances to, you know what? I don't care. I don't care. I'm going to do it because I want to. If it looks good, how could it be wrong? But you see, we go back to the garden, and it tells us that as she looked upon what had been said no to, it was pleasurable to the eye. If it looks good, how could it be wrong? If it feels good, how could it be wrong? Here's the problem with that. When we begin to look at it through the lens of Christ, through the lens of Scripture, pride begins to build. Scripture says that pride goes before destruction. Pride begins to build. And then now it's not, well, I'm not sure, or I don't care. I deserve it. How many times do you hear that today? In speeches, in conversations, they deserve it. There's two ends of that spectrum. Okay, they worked hard, they deserve it. Or they got punished, they deserve it. We create this mindset of I deserve it, and that gives birth to a whole new level of issues. We have to understand something, friends, and that is that sin is so much more than the act. So much more. That is why when we reduce it to a mere naughty act, naughty attitude, or something just foolish and stupid. And I don't want to be too crass or blunt, but when I read things like I was sharing with you earlier, it actually perturbs me, because I hate to say job, but our call as pastors, and I would even take it a little further, as believers, is to point and lead others to Christ. The things that we get sidetracked with and the foolishness that we chase that gets in the way of pointing someone to Jesus, that is a sin, because that is clearly against the mark of God. It is against the objective of God, because God desires that none should perish. So when we have people tailing off and trailing off in every other kind of way down these trails that have nothing to do with the salvation of their soul, that violates the principles of God. We want to talk about the clear definition of sin. There it is. We have to understand sin is so much more than the act that is committed. It is the disobedience. It is the disobedience to the instruction from God himself. It is the rebellion toward that destructive stuff that comes to our life. It is the rebellion against the instruction that God has given. Don't do that. The rebellion that comes, the intentional not listening that comes, the danger that comes with that, the price tag that comes with that is far greater than any of us are able to pay. You see, sin, and we'll close with this today, sin is much like we think of cancer. Now, cancer is a horrifying word that none of us want to hear. And at some point in time in our lives, most of us are affected by it in some type of way, whether it's through something that happens to you or through a loved one. I've lost family members. My only sister I've lost to cancer. Cancer has a malignant power. And because of that, it never just sits there satisfied. In other words, eventually it's going to grow. And it's going to grow with intensity. And just like that disease, if it's not taken care of, if the issue is not dealt with, it will take over. And it will spoil and it will ruin everything, even to the point of death. Sin, when we begin to understand what it really is, it is the cause of every destruction in the world today. How can I say that? Why with such boldness can I say that? And it not just merely be people being mean and ugly and hateful. We have to go back to what the core of it is. And we'll talk about that on Monday when we come back together here for Making It Simple. God bless you. I hope you have a great rest of the day. Thank you for joining me. And thank you for those that have sent me some comments, some things about this lesson. I pray that it is a blessing because this is important. It's not one of those words that's just simply defined and thrown out there frivolously, because when we do that, then we worry about whether we're drinking coffee. God bless you. I'll see you soon.